Yeah, David, thank you for meeting us out here and for the tour around the training facility here. It's an awesome facility, so we appreciate it. Day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, listen, work never sleeps. Let's get it done before the holiday.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally. Love it. Normally, we like to just kind of dive right in and get to some real estate talk, but just out of a personal curiosity, I'm wondering just what it's like to be an owner of a professional sports team.
Here's what I tell everyone. Owning sports teams is great when you're winning. Right? When you're not winning, it's tough.
Especially in Philly.
Yeah, seriously.
Especially in Philly.
We can be a bit brutal for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I tell everyone we have the best fans in the world, but they have high expectations and they should, but it's much better when we're winning.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's the passion, it goes both ways.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, something everybody wants to know, when we talk about 76th place, I think that'd be a great place to start. Tell us the vision behind that.
It starts from a simple place that we're the only professional sports team in the state of Pennsylvania that doesn't own their own home. And so you see walking around this great practice facility when you can control your destiny, you can design it, you can do all of these things. You can create a great experience for your, in this case, our fans, our players, and the city. I want to do that. We want to do that. And so we started from a place of we just want to control our own home, number one. And then number two, what could we do to build the arena and also do something great in the city of Philadelphia, which is purposely why I won't build it on a parking lot in South Philadelphia. I don't want the easy path. I want to do something that helps revitalize the city. And then three, I want our fans and our players to have the best experience they can have. And when you think about recruiting players, every team has the same amount of money to spend, right?
Right.
Why is someone going to come play for the 76ers? We have the best fans. We just talked about that. So that people know that, and highly competitive athletes appreciate that because we hold them to a high standard. But number two, we need world-class facilities. And so the goal is to play in a building that'll be world-class, in 2031 and win championships there for a long time.
Absolutely.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, so from your perspective, too, it's not even just about the team. It's about the city. I mean, you're from Philadelphia, right?
I'm from Philly. And I would say on some days I think more about the city and the benefits to the city than I do for the team.
Really?
Mainly because I'm from here.
Mm-hmm.
I care about the city. Seeing kind of the decline we're in post-COVID is, heartbreaking. A lot of cities in this country have kind of gone over the cliff, and I don't think they're coming back. You talk about like San Francisco or Portland. Those cities are fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they're not, but it's not
to
good.
put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, between, public safety, lack of, lawlessness, and lack of economic development. And so the goal here is, can we take a part of Market East that has historically been the center of commerce in Philadelphia? I tell everyone the department store was invented in Philadelphia. There used to be 9 of them on Market East. We're down to 1. You've boarded up retail in the heart of our city, 2 blocks from City Hall, which makes no sense. And that's why ultimately when I spent, a year and a half trying to find the perfect site, I kept saying, how can the heart of our city be underutilized like this?
Should be the best part of the city.
Yeah.
It's the center of the donut. And, for me, you're 2 blocks from City Hall and you've boarded up vacant retail between 9th and 10th on Market. It just...
And not just that, it just doesn't feel safe over there right now. I mean, I'm sure the board ups probably are a part of that.
Yeah. I by the way, lack of people, perception is reality. And so the way you stem that tide is activity and energy.
Totally.
You get people there to do that. You think about our convention center is next door. We have a nice convention center. So you're a organizer for, some association. You come to Philadelphia, you're checking convention centers around the country. You get in the building, you're like, oh, this thing's fine. This will do the job. And you're like, oh, let me go see what's around. So the people coming into the conference, how do they, look around? And like, oh, Liberty Bell, Convention, Constitution Center. You guys have great assets here in Philadelphia. Well, they walk out of the convention center down Market East and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is a desert.
Yeah.
I don't feel safe. And it's boarded up retail.
Especially after 8 o'clock at night. I mean, I walk around the city all the time and it becomes like almost like a ghost town. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, I wouldn't let my sister go there at night. Honestly. It's like it's the middle of the city.
Yeah. So, you mentioned a lot of like community ties in and, how that affects this project. How has the community feedback influenced you in the, updates with the plans?
It's interesting. We've done almost 100 meetings, small meetings, large meetings, nonprofits, individual, like you name it. Like I'm just on tour.
Yeah.
This is a
politician at this
more
point.
than full-time job for me, which I underestimated. But we've gotten lots of feedback. We've gotten some hate too, which we can talk about because I think it's fair to talk about both sides of this. But things have made the project better. Number one, we're sitting on top of the busiest train station in Philadelphia, Jefferson Station. And when we first designed the arena, we had it kind of sitting on top of the station. And we got feedback from SEPTA and others that said, you're not doing anything to enhance the experience of the subway riders. We had it set up that literally you could take the train, walk out, and you'd be courtside, like that level. So I thought that was a cool experience thinking as a fan. But like I wasn't wearing my developer hat properly at that time, candidly. And so we got great feedback. And as a result of that, we elevated the bowl and created this ground floor retail level between the train station and the arena. And what's interesting is we were contemplating this, and then the Sixers were in the playoffs last year in Boston. I hate the Celtics. But they always play us hard.
Still pissed they got Tatum. That's
But, they figured out 25 years ago how to build an arena on top of a train station.
TD Garden is sick, too. I was there a couple of months ago.
Amazing.
It's awesome.
And it's 25 years old. And so for people who are listening to this, you essentially have the pregame tailgating experience basically calls for retail on the ground floor, bars, restaurants, things like that. And then you can go down to the train station, the subway station, or up into the arena. And so now we create this thoroughfare. There was never a Market Street entrance into Jefferson Station. You had to go back around Filbert to get into it. So
really?
We're delivering a Market Street entrance, and we're creating energy. And what that energy really will do, which is really important, is the arena is going to be open for about 150 nights a year. But how do we make sure that street activates on game nights, non-game nights, concert nights, non-concert nights? And it's by having that retail on the ground floor that's always bustling and hopping. Talking about what we said before, that perception of public safety starts with getting people on the street, feet on the street, that energy. And so I'm pretty happy with this design. We got feedback that there's a lack of affordable housing in, particularly Chinatown. And so we're going to build about 390 apartments and set aside 20% for affordability.
It's on a separate site?
It's on top of the arena.
Wow.
Okay, kind of like TD Garden, like how they have those buildings, it's almost very similar.
Wow.
And so, by the way, those 80 units that we're going to create, about 78 units, that's 20% of the current affordable supply in Chinatown.
Wow.
Okay, so like we're trying to make a difference there.
Increasing it by 30% or so.
So that's the goal, is to continue to like make a difference. And these were all good ideas that came out of community meetings and community feedback. So to your question, the meetings have been long and tough, and we had one last week in the middle of November. I don't know when people are going to hear this. About 500 people attended. And my view is like everyone should come and say what they have to say.
This episode is sponsored by Axe Philly. Axe is a design build construction firm with a focus on custom single-family homes and boutique apartment complexes. Axe is focused on quality construction, efficient timelines, and clear, consistent communication throughout every project. For more information, you can visit our website, www.axephilly.com, or find us on Instagram @AxePhilly. That's AXEPHILLY. Back to the episode.
Now, most of our audience is real estate developers or adjacent services. Is this similar to an RCO meeting? Like if you're going to get a variance, or is this like a beefed up RCO meeting?
This was what would be kind of like just a food fight community meeting. And it wasn't, it was civil. And
500 people sounds...
500 people. I have a video out there we can give you of like my closing remarks to it, because what happened, we had some rules of engagement, like one for safety for people. We wanted to make sure, so, we had security there to wand everybody, no backpacks. And we said no signs. And during the event, I noticed all of a sudden somebody in the back starts unrolling these large signs. Like they left them in the bathroom, came in, snuck them in like through their pants and did it. And so security was doing, their job and, ushering people out. And I realized all the news cameras were like stopping on us and like filming the people with the signs. And so I stood up in the middle of the meeting and I said, time out. All of you people with the signs are welcome to stay. Security's not going to throw you out. And I said, security, give them back their signs. Okay.
It's a good move.
And I said, you are welcome to stay in this room as long as you're not disruptive. And by the way, you're going to have an opportunity, in about 30 minutes to ask questions.
Yeah.
So whatever your signs are saying, I can't read them all. Ask me a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I invited them up to the front of the room with their signs.
Nice.
My view is like, most people, you can have concerns about a project, but if you want to be like an anarchist and disruptor, that was what their intent was.
Right.
And so my view was like, come in, water's warm.
And you're just trying to engage at that point because you want to hear the opposite viewpoint.
I want to hear, everyone's viewpoint.
It sounds like you've changed your plans a decent bit since you started.
Everything's an evolution.
Yeah.
And I think, it would be hard, we were talking offline, there are some legitimate concerns that we have answers for, but we also want to make sure we correct the misinformation out there. There's so much misinformation about this project.
Yeah, tell us about that. Like, what are the biggest misconceptions with the project?
Well, early on, our local newspaper would call it the Chinatown Arena. The Gallery Mall has been around 50 years. No one has ever said the gallery is in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We're adjacent to Chinatown. We're near Chinatown. But the Chinatown Arena is just flat out misinformation by our local paper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's
And a bunch of TV stations would report it that
That's
way.
what I've heard the most. Too.
Right.
And I actually didn't really make that distinction until you just said it.
Walk around the mall. The
Yeah.
mall's not in Chinatown.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Number two, people talk about displacement. I tell everyone I'm building a box on top of a box. I'm taking one entertainment complex, the mall, and building another. We're not displacing one business or one resident. People talk about your displacement. I'm not displacing anyone. I own the mall. I bought the adjacent Greyhound bus station, and that's it. Period. Not displacing one person, not going into Chinatown to build, none of that.
Why is that a negative to go into Chinatown to build?
Well, I think people are worried about affordability for local businesses and communities, and I understand that. But there's also some legislative things you could do. You could do a historical overlay, right? You could do a variance related on national retail coming into there. So and we do think, I think, that city government should play a role in preservation of the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a private developer, and I said these in my final remarks, that the private industry can't save a city. Okay? They can be a catalyst for change. You can leverage private investment. But, it takes a lot more than that. And so, I brought up the fact that we're going to have a $1.5 billion of net new taxes as a result of this project over 30 years.
It's crazy.
Okay. And I said $200 million to the school district, and someone said, well, that's not enough. The school district needs $3 billion to fix it. And I just said, we got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And just the opportunity cost of if you don't have that 200, then what's the current site generating?
Of course. And more
Current site
importantly,
was going bankrupt, right? I mean,
listen, I hope not. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on it. It's owned by a public company, but it certainly has a debt maturity coming due with a certain occupancy, and you guys can look that up. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And if my project is 200 million, can we get 5 more?
Right.
yeah.
How do we clear the path so that the next developer that has a big audacious plan doesn't just get the shit totally beat out of them and not want to come to Philadelphia?
Or someone even smaller like myself. We're in the development of 10 units and below with some mixed use stuff, but I just wouldn't touch anything over there because I'm just a little bit nervous. If something like that's coming up, then people that are in my space can start coming in there too and developing.
Listen, I started in the small unit business too, right? And you guys are younger than me, and you're going to piece these deals together and you'll be more successul than me, right? You'll expand and do all these great things, but we got to encourage. I'm
Clip and watch it every day.
Yeah. But we have to encourage people to take risk and put up risk capital right now. And that's the only way you pull the city out of where it is.
And we when we were mentioning how it's growing a growing city and all the different evolutions that go along with that. I saw recently you put out something about how you're handling the parking situation. I thought that was really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that seemed to kind of alleviate some concerns I saw in the community.
Yeah, there's this whole, people are up in arms about parking, and that's again misinformation, and
Right.
you'd have to decide where that came from.
Yeah.
But I went to the game last night. Okay, Sixers. We played Cleveland, and there's only 4 choke points to get into the sports complex parking lots.
Yeah.
And they're choke points. And I waited 30 minutes to get into the game.
Yeah.
Before I was an owner, I'd leave with 2 minutes left. Okay, because you only have these 4 entry points. Okay, maybe 5, but I think it's 4.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, and so you have all this pressure there, and people talk about like how great it is to have a sea of parking lots. I totally disagree.
Yeah.
I totally
Takes
disagree.
forever to get out of it.
Okay. So I have arrangements with 29 parking garages that are in the same or lesser proximity than if you took the subway to Wells Fargo Center and you got out of the NRG station, that train station, and walked. That's a 7-minute walk. Okay. And so we've done concentric circles around all of our parking. Okay. And you look at the fact that people are all coming and dispersing from different locations. Almost 50% of our season ticket holders live or work in Center City.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're already there. Okay, so they're walking over or
Right.
something like that. We have a great map in our deck, and I don't know if you do visuals, but when you see 90 minutes before a game that 50% of our fans are currently in or near Center City going to Wells Fargo Center, and you see that last year 45% of all Ubers to Wells Fargo Center originated in Center City.
That's crazy.
So like the data is the data. Like
Right.
there's this emotional allure. And like people are like, but you have this unique gem, the sports complex. Okay. Like I've never gone to 4 events in one day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. And so like that allure, like football should absolutely be there.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball should be there. It's the size of those venues, but 27 out of 30 NBA teams play downtown.
27 out of 30.
27 out of 30.
So you're not even reinventing the wheel.
I
here.
was like,
It's-
if David Adelman invented the urban arena, like maybe Philly's not the place to do it. We should do it like Nashville or like a southern city. Like I'm number 28.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, come on, everyone. Like this is a tried and true. And we even have data that shows that urban arenas reduce crime. Okay.
Yeah.
Urban arenas support adjacent retail and small business and entice and build business. Like it's data.
Right. I mean, when I was walking by TD Garden, it was like popping. Like
Yeah.
no games, nothing going. It was
Well,
there
so
was so
well
much action.
lit, and that
Totally.
helps with security. And
People were just like hanging out at the bars
Yeah.
that are right there. Like there wasn't even a game, and it was full of people.
There's a over the hill radio commentator in Philadelphia who may be on the payroll of, my landlord, who, throws a lot of shade on me in the project by saying, well, you can't tailgate in Center City. Who fucking tailgates in February
Yeah.
in front of, outside an arena for a Sixers game? Like it doesn't happen now in the parking lot. The way you tailgate is what you said in Boston.
Yeah.
People are in bars.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like the bar experience, that pregame, dinner, drinks, postgame. That's the experience we want to give our fans.
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to, before we kind of change gears, because I think it's really important to talk about, is this, community benefits agreement. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's something I haven't necessarily heard as much about, but I think it's really significant to the project.
Yeah. So again, on the checklist for myself, Josh Harris, and David Blitzer was, what can we do to make this a win for the team, but also a win for the adjacent communities? And so it's customary in Philadelphia that large-scale developments, the casinos did it, Live Casino did it, and I think they gave a $2 million community benefits agreement. I said I want to do something unprecedented. We are doing $50 million. It's the largest in the history of Philadelphia and one of the largest in the country for a sports and entertainment project to give
crazy.
adjacent communities.
Wow.
Okay? Like, I want our community to be risen along with the team. Like, we have to rise everybody. We have to raise the boat for all the adjacent communities. That's our plan.
And what is that money, just for those that aren't aware of what that kind of does, what does that go to?
It goes to a number of buckets. So one would be safety and security, cleanliness,
And that's huge.
affordable housing, like we talked about. Excuse me. Job training. How do we prepare minority businesses and small businesses to do business with a big entity like us when it's a $1.5 billion project? We gave $2 million to the African American Chamber of Commerce, which will go towards preparing small contractors, vendors, food service providers to scale up and ramp up their operations to be ready to do business with us in 2031 or be ready to work construction with us in 3 years when we break ground.
So it's almost like mentorship of the businesses that are in place to help them grow with you.
Correct.
Wow. Which is cool.
How do we, can we take local Chinatown restaurants, great food, great vibe, and, can we create a marketing arrangement and give them, promotional exposure that would cost money and pay for that? Can we set up a food court, or pop-ups of local businesses and restaurants to, operate in and around the arena and subsidize that?
That's
awesome.
That's so unprecedented too, because I don't know the number, but a number of arenas around the country are also dependent on taxpayer dollars to build it. And as far as I understand, you guys aren't seeking any of that.
I'm glad you said that. So I was on a call actually yesterday, with a group I won't mention, but I said, I shouldn't be penalized because I'm not leveraging the city to leave. Okay. Like I lost all my leverage because I stood up on day one and said, I will not, if this doesn't work, I will not threaten to move the team. I lost all my leverage to negotiate, but I'm not going to, I live here.
That's being held against you.
Well, I think it's, there's only a handful. You can count on one hand the number of stadiums or arenas that have been privately financed.
Mm-hmm.
And they all receive subsidy because they are a public good, okay? I just think Philadelphia has a lot of other priorities, from schools to public safety to food insecurity, drug addiction, that need, that's where city money should go towards.
And this isn't just NBA. This is NFL, all the other sports teams.
They all take subsidies.
So to even wrap it up in a bow, not only is it creating a ton of tax dollars, not only are you giving a $50 million community benefit agreement, but it's not taking a dollar from the city.
Correct.
Not taking a dollar.
Not taking a dollar. Not only are we not taking a dollar, I got totally criticized because the city is launching independent studies, which they should, to verify the $1.5 billion of tax revenue, traffic studies, environmental impact studies, community studies. And I said, I'll pay for that.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay? So I gave the city
they're
money.
They're choosing their people.
They're choosing their people. It's kind of like you go to...
It's like funding your opposition,
well,
honestly.
how about listen, it's no different when you do a real estate project. You pay for the appraisal.
Yeah.
You don't get to pick the appraiser.
Right.
Okay? So I got all this crap that, and again, this misinformation that David Adelman picked the studies. Do you think the city of Philadelphia is going to let David Edelman pick the studies?
So to clear it up, you did not pick the studies.
I did not pick the
You
studies.
just funded it.
I just gave them a blank check to pay for their consultants.
Yeah.
Because I stand by what I said, that I'm not taking city money.
Wow. Well, so all right. So then I guess where are we at now with the project, and what is still needed in order to get approvals?
So, the city studies are going to come in. We're in, right before Thanksgiving right now. And so sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we think the city will get those studies back. Those studies will, review data, and they can just say, are the benefits what we said? Are the detractions what they were? Is there anything that wasn't discovered in all this stuff? And then the hope is that this will get introduced in city council in January after, new council sworn in.
Awesome. Nice. And so we're coming up.
We're go time, man.
Well, I mean, that's obviously an awesome project, but certainly wasn't your first. So, like I said, our audience is a lot of up and coming developers or people in the space that are
awesome.
Doing some of these smaller multifamily, and looking to grow. So just kind of curious how you got started in the business. What was your first investment?
So there's a guy in Philly, if you see me at the Sixers games, that sits 3 seats over from me with white hair. His name's Alan Horwitz. He's been my business partner forever, and he's like a father to me, and kind of raised me and taught me the business. So everyone calls him the sixth man.
I was gonna say, I was like, so I obviously we're doing research before this. So right. I look up, see Alan Horwitz is your mentor. Look him up, and I'm like, that's six man. I see him all the time on TV.
That's him.
It's so funny.
And so Alan was the guy growing up that you call your uncle, who's not really your uncle. I'm 11 years old. I'm playing basketball with Uncle Alan, and I said, I bet I can beat you. Most people let the 11-year-old kid win. Not Uncle Alan.
First lesson in business.
Alan's about to turn 80, and he's still really fucking competitive. It doesn't matter. He just loves to win.
You can tell from the sideline.
Oh, you see him get up?
The most energetic person.
He's so intense. It's amazing. And so I lose betting with Uncle Alan, my basketball, my football, my baseball glove, and I have to go to his office at Campus Apartments. every Saturday and stack lumber and sweep sawdust to earn it back.
Wait, he took all that stuff from you?
He cleaned me out, man. He totally cleaned me out.
It's a good lesson.
Your parents were just like, yeah, this will be good.
No, character building. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to tell your listeners that I'm no longer a gambling degenerate, but we worked through it. But
worked that out at age 10 or whatever.
I really did. So, and then 2 years later, for my bar mitzvah, I had $2,000 of gift money, and my parents were like, "Do you want to give it to your grandfather, who is a stockbroker?" And I'm like, "No, I want to give it to Uncle Alan and buy buildings." They're like, "What?" Like, I was a 13-year-old kid. Like, what does that mean? And I was like, "No, I want to do what he does." And so, literally, I was like, "Can I do what you do?" You know what I was even asking, but he's like, "Yeah." My parents thought it was cool, so we drove around University City, and he's like, "Well, which building do you want?" I'm like, "Well, what do you got?" And so, like, we're driving around, and finally, we're at the corner of 45th and Pine, and I'm like, "That one." He's like, "Why that one?" I'm like, "Well, it's the biggest one." I didn't know I didn't know shit about real estate, right? So,
It's the beginning of an investment philosophy.
that was it, right? Just buy the big buildings. So I did that. You know, that building was a 58-unit building. I gave him $2,000, which entitled me to like the stair tread, right? Literally, like I handed him like a bag of cash, and like it was everything I had.
I mean, how did he structure that legitimately in terms of like give you an LP piece of the project, or like
we treated it like that? Like he's like, "Oh, here's like here's your $7 a month of rent, distributions, and whatever." But like the truth is, like I then started working at campus apartments from the time I was in high school on. Okay, so like summers I did maintenance, I painted apartments, I put sewer lines in our buildings. Like I've done everything.
So you really started in the trenches.
Not only did I start in the trenches, but I was like 16 or 17 years old, and we were putting a sewer line in we have a lot of townhouses out in that portfolio. And I did something wrong, because I'm sure it was me. And like I hit something. It was the main was closed off, but I knocked the cap off, and like shit started coming out of the pipe. Literal shit. Okay. And I was like standing in shit. And I was like, I probably want to be in the other side of like the real estate business, because I'm not built for this, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I definitely messed it all up.
Did that switch you to spreadsheets at that point?
So we moved to leasing, property management. I mean, I tell everyone, and for your listeners, like the best way to learn business, real estate, is to become an operator first. Like I think the guys who do maintenance, construction, property management have it all over the folks that just start in brokerage. Okay?
Interesting.
That's just my personal opinion. I think you don't know how to value a building until you've operated one. And so I encourage like everybody to like do something in leasing, do something in property management.
Is this just because you gain a better understanding when you're actually at the site dealing with the issues, or?
I think investment sales guys and, financial analysts know numbers really well, know spreadsheets really well. And the investment sales guys know comps, right? But like, how do you know if the numbers are right? Like, how do you know what it really costs on a percentage of income to operate these buildings unless you've like seen the expenses go through?
If you're looking at an expense report from a building, are you at the point where you can just be like, hey, HVAC's a little high, we have an issue with our HVAC?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a little further removed from it now, but like when I look at when we're building something and I look at the costs, I still break it down. The one thing that Alan did for me is like, I am not a spreadsheet guy. Okay. I'm like a little bit of a throwback to like the pencil and paper stuff, because literally if I couldn't do the math in my head, he'd call me a moron. Okay.
Sounds like an awesome guy.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Gotta have him on here next time.
But like he's an HR nightmare at 80 years old, right? Because he just literally calls everyone a moron. Because he can do math so fast in his head, even at 80, that he doesn't understand when people can't keep up with him.
Yeah.
And so, but he did teach me that like if you can't figure this stuff out in your head, and like he has a great philosophy, which I use in all our businesses now, not just the real estate. If someone comes to present something to you and they're reading off a paper, they don't know it. He's like, so like he'll say to somebody, put the paper down and tell me a story, whatever it is, about the capital improvements, what's wrong with the building, or you don't have to memorize everything, but like tell me what's going on. Tell a story, and it's actually like resonated really well with me in business and I'm involved in a lot of different businesses, and so if people can't just tell you what's going on, they don't understand.
So
it's interesting.
When so you're doing all this stuff with, kind of behind the scenes, you transitioned over, and then it sounds like kind of you had this vision, and he kind of gave you the reins when you became CEO. Can you tell us about that first partnership with Penn and kind of what that looked like and how you had the vision for that in the first place?
Or even just like what it looked like going from like to that CEO position, because that's a big jump from
that was
sewer lines.
That was interesting. So, like I said, he had me doing everything. I went to Ohio State. I graduated, and it's funny because my daughter goes to Ohio State now, and it's a lot harder to get into now than it was then. Like I just had a pulse and like a low GPA, and I got in. But now, like it's very competitive. But what I really learned was that I graduated college on a Thursday and started working for him on Monday. I took no time off.
That's awesome.
I just wanted to work.
Yeah. Were you eager to get out in real life?
I was. I wanted to like have my own responsibility. I wanted to get out there. I just wanted to do it all.
Real quick, why did you ever think of not going to college? Just personal curiosity.
No, I felt like I had to go, but like I had like really poor grades. Like I didn't take it as seriously, and I'm not like I definitely have like I've talked about this before. Like I have a mix of like OCD and ADD. So like my ADD in classrooms was like painful.
It's a funny mix.
They
don't usually go together.
They don't, but like honestly, like that's been a contributor to like a lot of my success is because like I am really intense and like the OCD on certain things. Like I obsess. And, like people who work with me are like they know it. Like because I'll like ask the same question like 3 times till I get the But then like after a business I start up, I realize I'm not the right one to operate it long term, and so I have figured out that the most redeeming thing, or I guess like freedom as an executive, is to know that people are better than you at certain roles and putting them in those roles. And it takes a lot because it's a bruise to your ego to say that someone's smarter than me or someone's better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, it's like the best.
Do you have any advice for identifying those people?
Well, my view is you'll know them when you see them, right? Like you're going to know, like having somebody there that like, damn, they're really good. And so for me, like
it's self-evident.
It is. It's self-evident. And like, you'll just know if they're better at that given task than you are. And you should thrive for that. Like that's true leadership, is to be able to like work with people who are better than you and ask them questions, admit you're wrong and admit they're right.
It takes having no ego.
And I have a big ego, don't get me wrong. But like when you learn that piece of it, it makes you a better leader and a better executive, for sure.
Sort of putting the task first, or putting the company or the vision first over yourself.
100%. So your question about Penn, the way that came up, there's a great guy in Philadelphia, the current president of Drexel. His name's John Fry.
Yeah.
John used to be at Penn. He was like the chief business officer there. And I approached him and I said, I think that Penn shouldn't be in all aspects of the real estate business. And he was not an academic. He was a business person that came in. So he's like, I kind of agree.
Did you have a relationship with him prior?
No, I just met him like when he was there. I was a small little landlord at Penn, and he was the new guy. And I was like, can I meet you? And John's
awesome.
like the man. I think Philadelphia is very lucky to have him.
Yeah. Incredible all the stuff he's
credit
done.
to him too. He's like exactly what you were just talking about. Put your ego away and listen to some people that might know something more.
So what I said to him is like, there was a reason why universities figured out a long time ago that they don't need to be the person serving the sloppy Joe sandwich at lunch. Like let's hire Aramark or Sodexo or Levy or one of these national companies to do it because they're pros. And I said, John, you should think about that for real estate. No one had ever thought about it that way. And so he's like, well, why don't you manage our stuff? And I was like, I will definitely do that.
Wow.
And Alan's like, what are you talking about? Like, we're owners. We don't want to manage for a fee. Like, that's aggravating. You're going to get distracted. And I firmly believed that if I could figure out, and I had to figure it out, how to manage for a big institution like Penn, I'd be able to eventually do it for institutional investors. So like that was like the method to my madness. But Alan was like, I was like 25 or 26 years old at that point. And I was like, this is what we're going to do.
Were you CEO before that?
No.
Wow.
No. He ran the company. I was like, whatever my title was. I was general manager. I was vice president. I was like, we were a small business. We were 30 people at Campus Apartments back then.
Wow.
And so
you just had a big idea essentially. And
must have had a good story to convince him.
Yeah.
Well, I said like, he's like, look, back then, and I'm sure to a certain extent now, but like if you did a small 30 or 50 unit deal, I was able to develop it, create value, refinance, and get 110% of my money back, right? You'd pull out more capital than you had when you started.
Yeah.
And so like we didn't need capital, but I was like, if I want to do like 200, 300, 400 unit projects, I'm going to need money.
Right.
No one's going to give me money until I can prove that I know how to like financially report institutionally. So Penn was my training ground for that, like because I had to give them, reporting on their properties. So that was the reason why I did it.
So, I mean, I ask everyone this because it's something that we're currently going through right now. And that's, we get into the real estate game because we're excited about long-term growth and building wealth through owning real estate. However, there's a lot of short-term cash flow needs, and those two things are almost at odds with each other.
Correct.
So is this sort of your method of solving the short-term cash flow while you build the long-term?
So I'll answer it differently.
Okay.
I thought that in order to scale a large-scale business, I needed really good talent. And the current real estate we had wouldn't support that talent. And so I said, I'm going to create like a fee business just for the people. I don't want a dollar of that. Okay, for me. I want it just to pay for organization and infrastructure.
So it allowed you to bring on
Correct.
better people.
I was able to afford better people, hire the smarter people and the more experienced people.
Yeah.
Did you
I love that.
Did you start with the intent of I want to go national with this?
Yes.
Okay.
I there was no one doing it at the time. Like
Right.
one of my biggest regrets was that like student housing, when I started scaling it, was not a national asset class like it is today.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of like, I should, part of me is like, I should have just kept my mouth shut. Like I would have less competition now. But, we scaled an industry that wasn't scaled before.
And you guys are in 19 states now or something
Yeah,
like that?
it like varies. It's been as high as 25 states. I think we're at 19 now.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, what was the difference maker that allowed you guys to take that jump and get outside of just Philly?
I raised outside capital for the first time in 2006. I had never raised a dollar before. There was two real student housing companies that went public as REITs. I contemplated going public as well. We got approached by investment banks. You guys know we talked about it earlier. My best friend's a guy named Michael Rubin, one of my best friends, and he ran this really small, crappy public company back then. But he's like, dude, you don't want to be public. Like, it's a pain in the ass. Don't do it. He obviously turned that into a monster public company, and then
That like
even
Fanatics or pre-Fanatics?
It was pre-Fanatics.
Gotcha.
And then he turned it into obviously, $30-40 billion company. It's amazing what he's done. But he was like, don't go public. And so I ran a process. I found a sovereign wealth fund. And they were like, how much money are you looking to raise? I'd never raised a dollar before. And I was like, $300 million. And they're like, well, why do you need $300 million? I didn't tell them this, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, if I have $300 million of equity, I can get $700 million of debt. I have $1 billion platform. And that's why I did it.
It was almost like an ego play.
It was an ego play.
I want 3 commas.
By the way, if you look up in 2006, it says campus apartments in $1.1 billion joint venture. Okay.
That's awesome.
So, branding, so that was the onset of my branding career.
That was your story was you wanted $1 billion, but you had a different story for them.
That's right.
So that was the first time you were raising money, but you already had a pretty big organization at that point.
We had a
experience.
regional organization, I'd say.
You were already kind of outside of Philadelphia.
Correct. We were in like 3 or 4 states, maybe.
Got it. Nice. And then you pitched the idea, it sounds like, of, hey, I think we can go national with this. And then your value add there was, or I guess what separated you from someone else was how good you were at operating, it sounds like.
I think it was the operations, and it was also the fact that no one had really scaled this business, but people understood the returns. Like, I raised money from around the world. And what I learned is, whether it was in Asia or Europe, those investors were sending their kids to the U.S., and they fundamentally were personally paying rent for their kid in college. So like you said it earlier, real estate's like a get-rich-slow business, but they all appreciated the current income that student housing provides, right? Like quarterly coupons.
Was that a challenge then? Because I think a lot of our listeners are, looking to raise money themselves, but they always sometimes that's like the hardest part, right? Was that a big challenge for you to like go around the world or wherever you were trying to seek out money, or was that kind of more easy for you because you had that established platform?
No, I think, the first time it was hard. It's still hard. I mean, we raise our funds every 3 to 4 years now. And it's still, I got to go out there and prove ourselves every day and got to show the respect for the capital. But I think the hard part for guys, that you're talking about that are starting out is, it starts with friends and family.
Sure.
And the truth is that if you have friends that are lawyers or doctors or dentists or professionals, like they do need to put their money somewhere. And so if you can build a network of your peer set that are professionals taking part of their capital that they make as income and they give it to you, you can give them a nice return and but you have to set your organization up properly to do that.
Do you think there's a benefit to going institutional versus like friends and family like that?
Look, institutional capital is great. There's more handcuffs on it. And I think like the right of entry to that, like your diligence and all those things, like you have to prove yourself and like you have to have the track record. So like I don't see how you can like shortcut the track record. So that friends and family
It's almost one comes first.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And institutional, it, for the most part, can kind of be cheaper, right? Too, and over the long haul.
I don't know if it's cheaper. I think it's, there's a captive audience there, but like I know a lot of folks that have a stable of, 10, 20, 30 families that like love putting money in, and that's what they do, and they don't deal with some of the aggravation that you do.
Less headaches.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, I mean, you've been doing this for a while. Everyone is talking right now about shaky markets. You've been through a few market downturns, so I would love your perspective on, how you've overcome some of these past market downturns and maybe some advice for some people heading into their first.
Yeah, and so a year ago, I stopped all my venture investing. I saw the world going this way. It took time, but I just said, like, when things are too good to be true, it doesn't last. It just doesn't. And the first time I saw this was in 2007 when I saw people doing real estate deals and getting like 95% leverage. And our acquisition guys would be like, hey, if we could go to like 85% leverage, this deal pencils. And we were losing out on student housing deals, like $40 million deals, by like $3 million. That's a big bogey, right? Like it's one thing to lose out by like $500,000.
Right.
But like so I was like, something's wrong. Like I didn't understand what was wrong, but I was like, something was wrong. And then we had this experience, I'll never forget. A lot of what we did at Campus Apartments and still do now is if someone has a good site and they need like our capital, our expertise, we'll let them stay in the deal or they'll sell it to us. Like, they get the entitlements, we pay them a fee and they move on, or like we roll them into the deal. Like we're indifferent. And like literally a guy from Alabama had a site next to an SEC school and he had plans for a $90 million project. And he brought the plans to us and all that. And like, I'm meeting him and talking to him. And I'm like, oh, it's a big project. You developed a lot of other stuff. Like this was like a $90 million project in 2007.
Okay.
Like
I know it's coming.
And literally he was like, oh yeah, I've got 60 units I own. And I was like, and he was a doctor.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was like, what?
How many units was this project? Like ballpark?
Oh, it was probably like 700 units. I mean, it was a monster, 700 beds. It was huge.
Yeah.
90 million in Alabama goes a lot further,
Right?
too.
And so he's like, yeah, I'm a pain management doctor. I own 60 units. And I had financing lined up with Lehman, but they pulled it. This pre-Lehman Brothers was crashing.
Oh, wow.
I left the meeting. I was like sick to my stomach. I said to my guys, I said, listen, when a guy who's only owned 60 units had a term sheet for a $90 million deal, I don't give a shit if he lost it or not.
Yeah.
Like, we're out.
Something's up. Yeah.
Literally, we killed every deal in our pipeline over the next few weeks. And I didn't understand it. And the financial crisis hit like 6 months later.
So this was in like 07?
07, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So you had some inspiration and then just acted on it quickly and heavily, it sounds like.
Listen, like what I'm learning is like, and even like, when the world gets that way, it's like you're either a buyer or a seller. I was like, sell it all. Like, I don't want to be like, I don't understand. And so back to your other point, like it's going to get weird out there. These high interest rates, like, when I started out in business, interest rates were 8-9%. So like kind of where we are now. And that was normal. When interest rates got down to 6% in 2006, I'll never forget this. I locked how much? Almost $300 million of debt. I was like, oh my God, 6%.
Because you were like, this is amazing. We're down to 6.
I was like, the rates will never be lower than this. I'm going to lock the rate. I locked it for 15 years. I found someone who would give me a 15-year fixed rate loan for $300 million. Do you know how long I had to wait for that to mature when rates were at 3% and 4% and all that? I was like, so the point was, you just never know at the rates. And obviously they're higher now. And, it's funny, we refinanced that portfolio in February, a year and a half ago, and, at 4%.
Nice.
Right.
Wow.
And I'm locked for 10 years. But I have a bunch of floating rate stuff right now that I'm paying 7%. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is painful. I'm like, you don't know painful.
Yeah.
But the problem is the guys you're talking about who have gotten into the business over the last like 7-8 years, are still newer in the business. They've never seen rates like this. They underwrote a deal assuming 5% rates or 4% rates. Now they're at 7 or 8.
Right.
They're having trouble, keeping up with their cash flow. The debt service coverage isn't there. And they're probably going to need to refinance that construction loan when it comes due, and they're going to need equity to pay it down.
It's like a cash in refi almost. Like you
Correct.
said, you pulled out 110,
right,
110%, right? Now it's like you're going to be putting money in.
You're going to put 10% in.
Right.
And that's the problem. I think you're seeing a squeeze of people who overextended, thought things were good for too long, and there's going to be some pain. I
feel like there's not a lot of properties that are selling at these lower numbers that you'd expect with higher interest rates. You think it's just because people aren't selling yet? Like they haven't felt the pain
They haven't felt the pain yet. Yeah. And, the banks are not are not jamming people yet. Like they're extending it. They want it to work out. Like no one wants to see it fall apart right now.
Right. Yeah. So people are kind of restructuring how they need to.
That's right.
In your estimation, in terms of like a market prediction, if you will, where do you see the next 12 to 18 months from, if you want to talk about interest rates or just the market in general?
I think that rates are going to stay where they are for the next 18 months. And I think then you'll see some cuts back. It won't be as low as it was before, but, I think, they'll settle. I think you'll see rates drop 200 basis points and land around there.
And then everyone always talks about rates coming down. Like right now, I feel like it's a hot topic. People will be like, rates are coming down. Just, 6 months, you'll be good. A year, you'll be good. But it happens as a response to stimulate the economy after things break.
Correct.
So if you're saying 18 months, they're going to come back because over the course of the next 18 months, things are going to break.
They're going to break. They're going to stabilize. I mean, we have this weird thing, you still have low unemployment. But I believe what you'll see is a bunch of companies, tech companies that were spending on engineers and really well-paying jobs. I think AI and all that stuff wipes those jobs out. And if a guy was a $200,000 engineer, what's his next job?
Right.
And he gets fired. I don't have an answer for that, but I keep asking really smart people. I'm like, what's going to happen to all these people that get laid off?
And that's crazy because you remember the whole learn to code thing? Yep. That was if you're a truck driver, you're screwed. Learn to code so that you're safe. And now the people who are coders are screwed.
Maybe.
So I don't know what's going to happen.
Knows, right? But with AI, that's what
I'm curious then if we go even more local and talk about Philadelphia. We had a surplus of permits for the abatement. When that kind of went away or trickled down, kind of, if you will. Do you think we'll see those impacts? Because a lot of people we've say that Philly has a 6-month, kind of shadow that other markets have. We don't get affected by blowbacks as well. We've talked with a number of developers that say, we don't have a lot of inventory or we have too much in certain price points. What are your thoughts on just the Philadelphia market?
I think that if Philadelphia doesn't find a way to change its perception, and I do think Sherelle Parker is going to be a really good mayor. I think, already pre-announcing a new police commissioner, at the time that we're recording this, she's going to be tough on crime and, good pro-public safety. I think if we can instill the confidence in Philly, we've got a shot. Pre-COVID, our food and restaurant scene was awesome, right? It was really good. If we can figure out how to entice businesses to invest here, we'll be fine. Because we're so dependent on eds and meds, we need job creation. What is the job engine for Philadelphia? How do we make the ease of business do well here?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking to other businesses, how would you convince them to move to Philly?
I think you'd have to show them that there's an able workforce, assuming what their industry is, culture, sports is obviously part of that, but the vibe, the arts, the food, all of that, is worth investing in. And, this is where you can attract a workforce, but we have to prove that we have that workforce here.
I mean, you've mentioned it's mainly a perception problem. Is that just the perception being that crime is tough and it's tough to do business?
Yeah. I think that's it. And by the way, our tax rate,
right.
Details, the wage tax and things like that. We have to show that we have to figure out a way to entice businesses here.
Do you see yourself, you've got your hat in so many rings now. Do you see yourself continuing? It sounds like you're still heavily involved in campus apartments. Do you see yourself like in the future staying very involved there and continuing to invest in real estate both locally and around the country?
Yeah, campus apartments is like my first baby, right? Like I love real estate. It's a great business. We have a great company. We have a great team. I have a partner and a guy named Dan Bernstein who really runs the day-to-day. He's our president and chief investment officer and does a great job. And he's great. So I love that business. We'll never get out of that business. And by the way, we're really good at it. Like we are good operators and we create a lot of value, but I also co-founded another company called FS Investments here in Philly. It's based in the Navy Yard. We're managing $78 billion of, people's capital. I love that business. DevCo Capital, that's my family office. I love doing venture and stuff like that. And then obviously, I love the sports business. Here, being, a partner with Josh and David, and the Devils, Joe Gibbs Racing, Crystal Palace in the Premier League. We're just getting started in that business too.
Yeah. So when you're operating a sports business, do you look at it just like one of your other businesses? Like you look at it as a business, does it become less fun? I guess is my point.
That's a great question. I think it's like a barbell. Like when you're just focused on the business, it's just another business. But then, when I show up into the arena, I'm a fan just like you. Right?
Yeah, right. So you sort of you take on and off the hat.
Correct.
Essentially.
Yes.
I mean, Alan, as you would say, it's safe to say is your first mentor.
Correct.
In business.
Yes.
I mean, he's obviously a huge fan. How was that when you were buying into the Sixers?
Oh, he was psyched. He was so psyched.
It had to be a really cool moment.
Oh yeah, he loves it. He's thrilled. He's been
finally
so
gave you the ball back.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Although literally, I don't know if even the game last night, he's standing up. I'm like, you're gonna get a technical. You're gonna stand in the way of the refs. He's just such a passionate fan. It goes without saying. He's taught me a lot about philanthropy. I don't know if you guys know about Philly youth basketball, but he's created Philly youth basketball. A guy named Kenny Holtzman had a vision for how sports and empowerment for young boys and girls can be important. And they're building what they call, Alan was the lead gift. He put up $5 million, which was amazingly generous to build this, they're calling it the Alan Horowitz 6-Man Center.
Oh, sweet.
And it's,
That's cool.
Multiple indoor basketball courts, classrooms, financial literacy.
Where's this
empowerment? It's in Wissahickon.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's open. We have a big gala in January. It's on his 80th birthday too, to honor him for being the funder. And,
that's amazing.
So it's going to be cool.
That's really cool. What was that called?
It's called Philadelphia Youth Basketball.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah,
awesome.
PYB.
All right. Well, I know we're kind of on a time crunch here. We're gonna get to our last question.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, we just have this one question we like to ask everyone. If you were to lose all of your assets, all of your money, and all of your connections, how would you restart in Philadelphia today?
So I tell everyone that I mentor lots of people. You only get one reputation. Period. One reputation. And so the question is, assuming my reputation was intact and all of that, I think, I've never, I tell everyone, I'm working harder now than I ever did in my life. So I've never been afraid of hard work. I am burning the midnight oil. I'm on a plane all the time. I'm grinding, but I love the energy. And so if I had to start sweeping floors again, I would, right? But I also know that, the way I kind of grew in business was to meet with as many people as I could to get advice. And maybe it wouldn't be real estate again. I hope it would. But no differently than I saw this mismatch of why student housing was being overlooked. Would I be able to focus on seeing what's the next mismatch, whatever in some industry? And I think that's how I would look at it is to find where is it, then prove to people that if they put up money, I'd make more for them and, participate along the way. And, I think that's how I would do it.
Makes a lot of sense. So I said that was the last question, but you mentioned this is the hardest that you've ever worked. I'm curious, what is driving you at this point in your career?
It's a great question. I love fixing businesses. I like building things. I mean, I'm in the alcohol business, right? What do I know about selling vodka and whiskey? But I do. But just to show you how competitive I am, I flew out to the Eagles-Chiefs game the other night. And before the game, I met with our alcohol distributor for Missouri. and went on sales calls selling
Wow.
vodka. Okay. You know, people remember. So like when we announced the arena 2 years ago, it was in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And literally I was down the shore in Margate at Down Beach Liquors with our people selling our vodka. And people came in and like, aren't you the guy that just announced the arena? I'm like, yeah. They're like, isn't it like $1 billion arena? And they're like, you're selling vodka? And I was like, well, like, I need to sell vodka to pay for the arena, you know. But I'm just competitive. Like I want to win. I like working. I like fixing things. Like,
Love it.
you know,
It's like the love of the game almost.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
you just want to win.
I don't fish. Okay.
Yeah.
like, you know, and so I love the energy of like creating things. I like helping people create things, you know, and look, it's not just work, like it's philanthropy, it's other things. I like I like being active.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, it sounds like the cities could use a lot more of you. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sitting across from two guys that look like you're going to do it too. So
Awesome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate everything. Well,
Yeah,
thanks
appreciate
again
your
for
time.
doing this, and looking forward to seeing how everything comes out.
awesome.
Sure.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, David.
Be back soon.
See ya.